What up, my friends? Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we have one of my favorite videos to do. We're going to discuss all of the books that I read in the month of May. These videos are always spoiler free, so I won't include any spoilers for the books we're going to discuss. I will give a little bit of a summary for it, and I'll also share my star and spice ratings so you know what to expect when heading into the book. I read a total of 11 books in the month of May. When I share the books that I read, I will include a graphic on the screen. That way, if you want a screenshot, I include the graphic at the beginning and at the end. That way, by the time you've heard my synopsis, if you think it's something you want to read, you could do that. I also always put a full list of the books down in the description box. So if you're headed to the library or to support your favorite independent bookstore, I have a full list and my top 3 listed there, so you could screenshot that even easier. In case you're interested on exactly how I approach doing my star and spice rating, I did a full breakdown on my thought process for that last month. So I'll have that link down below, and I am going to start including in the description box my guideline. That way you know what to expect when you hear my scores. I had a really great month of mixing it up. I'm primarily a romance reader, but I always try and dip into a couple of the other genres just to make sure I'm keeping things nice and fresh for myself. Let's just dive right into what I read. All right, so first up, I started off with a historical romance, and it was called Belle of Belgrave Square by Mimi Matthews. This one I gave a 4 out of 5 on stars, 0 out of 5 on spice. So this one follows Captain Blunt, and he has a lot of financial troubles, and in order to get through them, he needs to marry a rich heiress. He finds Julia, who seems to be the perfect match, but the problem is that her parents want her to stay as close to them as possible, and if should any suitor try to remove her from the area, her dowry is going to be off of the table. When Julia shares with Captain Blunt exactly what she's going through at home, he is torn with the idea that he wants to rescue her, but knows it would mean leaving behind her financial backing that he so desperately needs. I had an interesting experience with this one. There were some points that were incredibly strong. Mimi Matthews' writing is just so eloquent, and it just feels very timeless and classic, but the pacing on this one was a little weird. There was parts that I felt should have been faster that went super slow, and then there was parts that I felt could have been elaborated on that were just like sped past. The other thing is it does get pretty repetitive at points, and there was like this weird thing that I don't know if it was just a me thing, but they just kept mentioning how this girl's friends were out of town. And I know it's probably because this is connected to other stories, so they're trying to like remind you of characters from the series maybe. Overall though, there was some like hidden secrets and some twists that really had caught me off guard. So I felt like it was a more dynamic romance. There was a lot of things going on in the background, a lot of emotional things being worked through. There's also like a subtle nod to Beauty and the Beast, but I felt like it was done in a twisted and more fresh way. So overall, if you're into historical romances, it's definitely something I would recommend picking up, especially if you're looking for a clean one, because there's no spice in this whatsoever. And overall, I think Mimi Matthews is an incredibly talented writer. Now, going to the other side here, we're going into a dark romance. This one is Scythe and Sparrow by Brynne Weaver, and this is the 3rd in a series. I talked about Leather and Lark, I think either last month or the month before that. I absolutely loved Leather and Lark. That was the 2nd in the series. I wasn't like the hugest fan of the first one, which is called Butcher and Blackbird, which a lot of people really loved. It was just mediocre to me. But the 2nd and 3rd one, I feel like the 2nd and 3rd live up to what people had me expecting with the first one. So for this one, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 on stars, 3 out of 5 on spice. It's definitely on the spicy side. This one follows Rose, who actually works in a circus, and she moonlights with some tarot card readings, and sometimes she'll meet someone who seems like they need help, and she will put herself at risk sometimes to try and give those people the help that they need. When she encounters a battered woman in Nebraska that seems to be crying out for help, she gets herself in a situation that leads her to the doorstep of a doctor who happens to have a dark past of his own that he doesn't want Rose to know about. I am like really sad that this is over, and I wish that I had enjoyed the first one more, because I just feel like I would have soaked up the whole series so much. I felt like I only got 2 books instead of 3 that I really enjoyed. I thought that it wrapped up in the most beautiful way though. I loved these 2 characters, and I loved the way that their relationship built. It felt mature. It didn't feel like there was miscommunication that didn't make sense. All of the miscommunication that happened was realistic and something that I think you'd see happen in real life. I loved the circus element because I felt like it just gave this like extra level of entertainment, and it aided with the whole, because this is like a serial killer romance, and I felt like it kind of gave the whole like, I don't know, like House of Mirrors type vibe to it, kind of like if you're watching a horror movie or something. Nothing about it though felt too gory or anything like that. I just love the way that the whole thing was done. It felt like entertaining chaos the entire time. It was also the type of book that I just did not want to put down. It didn't have my heart racing at any point, but it also had enough suspense that I was completely locked into trying to figure out where the story was going next. I would recommend the entire series. I think that it's definitely unique. I think it's fun. I think it brings something different to romance. So if you're looking for a series to pick up and you like things on the darker side, I would recommend it. And just know that I personally think the books got better as it went on. Okay, I told you guys in my last month's video that one of the books that I wanted to reread, or the entire series actually, is Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I only got to the first book in this month, but it was a 5 out of 5 for me. Again, there's no spice in this one, so 0 out of 5 for spice. Rereading this was very interesting because I read it 20 plus years ago. I'm 38 now, and I think I was like 15, 16 when I read Hunger Games initially. I felt like it was such a different experience reading this as an adult now that I've read other fantasy series. And I think I learned a lot about myself as a reader with rereading this, which is funny. But let me tell you what the book's about, although I'm sure you know Hunger Games. This one follows Katniss, who's basically living in a world that's ruled by the Capitol. And in order to keep the citizens in line, they perform what they call the Hunger Games annually. And each district has to have 2 people represent them to fight to the death against all of the other districts, and only one person can remain. When Katniss's sister is unexpectedly chosen, despite the fact that she had a low chance of being so, Katniss ends up stepping up to volunteer as tribute and enters the games herself. So the reason why I say that this made me think about myself as a reader is because one of the things that I think is funny about me is I do not like books that don't have a lot of dialogue. I enjoy dialogue in books. So when there's books that don't have a lot of dialogue, I tend to drag myself through it. I'm just not as captivated. I have friends that are the exact opposite. Even my sister is the exact opposite of me. She loves the books that are more descriptive and don't rely as much on dialogue. When I was reading Hunger Games, I realized that if it's going to be a non-dialogue book, it just needs to be done well. And that's what's done well here. Now, there is a lot more dialogue as the book progresses because there's a lot more interactions happening. But the beginning half of the book is really a lot of setting the world up and setting the reader up to understand what exactly is going on. So there's not a lot of dialogue happening, which tends to make my brain float away. But in this case, I just stayed connected the entire time. And despite the fact that I've seen the movies so many times, and I read the series at least twice in my life before this, I've still felt so fresh and so connected to the book and so immersed in the entire world. I remember watching the movies and feeling a sense of anxiety when it came to it because it's a stressful story. But this time I didn't feel that way. I felt like it was easy to follow, but captivating. I feel like my words aren't eloquent enough to go along with how strongly I feel about this book. But if you've ever considered picking up Hunger Games, maybe you saw the movie but never read the book, I would 100% recommend going out to read the book. I'll definitely be continuing on in the series, so you should expect next month I'll probably be reporting back on the second one. I had to run and go grab a show and tell item for this next book, and we need to talk about this book, you guys. We need to talk about this book, The Amalfi Curse by Sarah Penner. You guys, I honestly bought this book because of the cover. I shouldn't say that. I also really enjoyed another book by this author called The Lost Apothecary. So I already knew that I enjoyed the author, but the cover, something about the cover just called to me, and I was in a mood to read. I had no idea what the book was about, but The Amalfi Curse, that just sounds like a vibe, right? So it's a historical fiction. I gave it a 5 out of 5 on stars, 0 out of 5 on spice. And this one follows Haven, who's a nautical archaeologist. Hopefully I said all of that right, because that's a big word. Those are 2 big words back to back for your girl, okay? And she heads to the Amalfi Coast to do a research trip, but what she's not sharing with her employer and coworkers is that while she's there, she has a little bit of a personal mission because her father was convinced that there's a hidden treasure in the area. So she decides that she's going to try and combine her efforts while she's there and see if she can find anything out. While she's doing so, she happens to uncover some mysteries from things that went down centuries ago, and she realizes that she she may be the one to be able to bring closure to the situation. This book is a must read. If you enjoyed the movie National Treasure or even The Little Mermaid, this book is for you. It's like the two of them somehow crashed together. Also, I don't know if you remember the movie Fool's Gold with Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey, but it's got a little bit of that in there. This one is a dual timeline book, and the timelines have a couple hundred years between one another. I enjoyed both of the characters from both of the timelines so much. I enjoyed the amount of real estate that was dedicated to each of them. I felt like it was just balanced really well, and the pacing for the entire book was done so well. She has some sections that she really takes her time with, and then she has some other sections where she really lets the tension build up a little bit faster. There's two romances happening. There's one in each timeline, and both of the romances were just enough. It didn't take over the story, but it just added like a whole other layer to it. It was like soulmate style romances. There were mysteries happening in both timelines, and I felt like it never got to be too heavy, but it was just enough to keep the suspense up. I ended up staying up until 2 o'clock in the morning to finish this book because once I started it, I did not want to put it down. I ended up putting a Amalfi Coast ambiance up on my TV while I was reading this book, and it was just like the best night. Like, I haven't had a night like that in a while where I just sit down, open a book, and finish it cover to cover. But that's how much I loved this book. I ended up having my little like neck light on because my husband was sleeping next to me, so I didn't want to disturb him with like keeping all the lights on. And I was really excited because it was actually offered as a book of the month. I have a book of the month subscription. Each month they give you 6 different books you can choose from, and I'm not gonna lie, not every month has a book that I'm really that interested in. But they make it super easy to skip, where if you don't select a book, they don't send anything. So it's not like the opposite way where you have to go on and say, no, I don't want anything. It's like if you don't pick a book, then nothing gets shipped. Plus, I believe you can like pause your subscription if you want to. If you don't like any of the titles that they pick for that specific month, you can also instead pick out a member fave. So they'll have a list of like 5 or 6 other books that are an option to swap out, or you can skip the month entirely. Then what they'll do is they'll offer a book of the month like this, and then they have some add-ons. So if you want to add on an additional book to your box since it's getting shipped out, for me, they're only like $10.99 to add on a book. I think book of the month is awesome. They have no idea who I am. They're not sponsoring this video whatsoever, but I will leave a referral link down below because I think that if you do the referral link, you get the first book for only $5. And then after that, I want to say it's like $16.99 a month, if that. But these are like really nice quality hardcover books that are specific to book of the month. And this is what it looks like on the inside if you wanted to display them that way. The reason why I even got into this author is because of book of the month. I had got The Lost Apothecary through book of the month, knew that I liked the author, then picked this up, and this is one of the best books I've ever read. In case you didn't get it, that one is a definite recommend for me. All right, the next one, unfortunately, not a real recommend for me. Office Grump by Nicole Snow. This one I gave a 2 out of 5 on stars and 2 out of 5 on spice. So this one follows Sabrina, who's having a really rough day, and it gets worse when an entitled rich jerk tries to boss her around, and she retaliates by spitting on his shoes. He is for some reason impressed by this and sends his employee to go chase her down and offer her a job. I don't like to spend a lot of time dogging on books or anything because sometimes it's just a compatibility issue, but for me this one just felt really juvenile, really unbelievable, and just like over the top. I normally just will give up on a book if it's not that great, but there was like a family drama situation happening that I wanted to find out the answer to, and once I got the answer, it was really just a letdown. So overall, this one was just not a strong one for me and not one I'd recommend. All right, the next book I picked up was called That Fine Line by Cindy Steele. This one I give a 4 out of 5 on stars and 0 out of 5 on spice. In this one, Kelsey heads home and she can't really explain to herself why she feels the need to because she's in the middle of planning a wedding with her dream man. However, the longer that she stays with her family and is back in her hometown, she starts to realize that the life she's built for herself and the person that she's strived to be may not be authentic to who she actually is. And when an old rival of hers starts to stir up some unexpected feelings in her, things start to get even more complicated. This one was really sweet. If you're looking for that Hallmark style vibe where it's predictable romance, but you get like those cozy feel-good vibes, this one would definitely be for you. I love the movie Sweet Home Alabama with Reese Witherspoon, and this had sprinklings of that in it. It's not an exact match for the plot in any way, but a lot of it reminded me of it. This was one of those ones too where I was thinking about the characters when I wasn't reading it. So I was really immersed in it, and it was one of those small towns that I really wish I could just like get in my RV and go visit for a week or so. I felt like the author did a really good job in writing the scenery, and I just felt like I really was there. So overall, I think it's a great pick, especially if you're looking for one of those warm, feel-good style romances that you can walk away feeling happy. The next one that I read was called The Serendipity by Emma St. Clair. This one was also a 4 out of 5 on Stars, 0 out of 5 on Spice. We have Archer in this one who's trying to escape his father's latest mess, and he decides to purchase a historic building, the Serendipity, in Serendipity Springs. He's focused on turning it into luxury condos. Rumor has it this building has a lot of magic in its walls, which of course he doesn't believe. However, he ends up moving into the building in order to start working on it, and he meets one particular resident who helps him see the building through her eyes, and he's starting to question the plans he had for the building. This one had a very like whimsical, magical element to it, but it didn't feel like supernatural in any way. It just felt like it had, I don't know, something special going on. It's definitely feel-good romance, again, predictable. It was like a grumpy billionaire with like a free-spirited baker teaming up, and I just loved that vibe, of course. There were also a lot of really cute side characters that I felt added even more warmth to the story. I don't think there's anything like groundbreaking about this one. It's probably one that if you ask me about it a year from now, I might not remember most of the details. But overall, if you're just looking for one of those like low-stake romances, I think this one is a good option. Next up, we switched gears and I did a thriller, and this is called What Lies Between Us by John Mars. This one I gave a 4 out of 5 on Stars, 0 out of 5 on Spice. So we have Maggie and Nina. Maggie has done the unforgivable to Nina, and Nina is determined to make sure she serves a punishment that fits the betrayal. Even though Maggie knows that sharing the truth with Nina might help her out, she knows that she can never share the truth about why she's in the situation she's in. This one is a solid thriller. There's enough twists and turns to keep you guessing, but I didn't feel like my anxiety was ever super spiked with this one because there's a little bit of a predictability factor that comes into it. It's definitely very dark and twisted though. This author, this is my second book from him, he writes in a very dark and twisted manner. So what I enjoyed most about this one is it's very straightforward, very easy to follow. There's not a bunch of characters. It's really centered around Maggie and Nina and their past together, and it felt incredibly believable. It felt like something that you would read or watch on like Dateline or something. So overall, I think this is a great pick if you're into thrillers and you like more like the psychological style. I think this one would be a good pick. All right, the next one is Work in Progress by Staci Hart. This one is a contemporary romance. I gave this a 4.25 out of 5. I couldn't decide between a 4 or a 4.5. And for Spice, we gave it a 2 out of 5. So we have Amelia, who dreams of being an editor, but unfortunately has really crippling social anxiety that holds her back. She's trying to work through that social anxiety by going to get books signed by an author that she's previously given not stellar reviews to on her blog. And when she gets there, he unfortunately recognizes her and unexpectedly offers her a position to help him write his next novel. And she can't exactly figure out why, but she realizes that she feels comfortable enough with him to take the opportunity. This book is just one that I was gonna love it no matter what, because I am such a sucker for books about books or books about authors or books about writing books. And that's what was happening here. There's like a behind the scenes of building a romance novel that I really enjoyed. They sprinkled in a little bit of the book throughout. I really enjoyed the characters so much and their connection. There's definitely some pieces where it drags quite a bit, and then the miscommunication part felt a little immature and ridiculous to me. I also have a hard time sometimes where somebody does something in a book and they take all the blame on as if the other person didn't contribute to it, and then that doesn't get worked out or resolved really well, and that kind of happened here. So that part wasn't my favorite, but overall, I just thought this was a really cute one. It had kind of like a celebrity aspect to it because the author in this book is a best-selling author that everybody knows, and he has kind of like a notorious bad boy reputation out there, and she's this like squeaky clean girl who doesn't interact with anybody and doesn't have a lot of life experience. And so the combination of the two of them I felt like was a really fun vibe. There are some spicy sections on this book, but I think that it was handled really well considering exactly how kind of naive the girl is. I really enjoyed how the author navigated that while keeping the chemistry and connection going. So really cute one, would recommend. Next up, I just was feeling a thriller, you guys, so I decided to pick up yet another thriller. And this one was another book of the month pick of mine. And it is Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. I love this edition because it has like foiling on the lettering for this. And I love the color combo that they went, because this is so not thriller vibes. And I think that's just cool how it's like ironically not thriller, you know? So this one was Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. This one I gave a 4 out of 5 on stars and 1 out of 5 on spice. In this one we have Grady, who is finally getting the call that every author dreams of getting. And as usual, his wife is not there to join him in celebrating. She ends up calling him from the road, but tells him that she's about to stop to help somebody, and then she just disappears. A year later, Grady has found that he is unable to write at all because he's consumed with thoughts of his wife. So his agent decides to send him to an isolated island to try and see if quiet is what he needs to get words back on the pages. I really enjoyed this one. It has major creepy vibes, and that's what I was looking for. The whole isolated island thing was really creepy. It's set in the Scottish Highlands, and I really enjoyed the community, small town feel that was going on in the background. I did, however, feel like this book was way too complicated. There are so many characters in this story, and it got a little difficult to follow because they basically involve the entire small town, and they're kind of all persons of interest, if you will, and you're never really sure what's going on, which is great in a thriller, but sometimes I feel like there's a line, and this one stepped over the line in terms of it's no longer just interesting, now it's confusing. What I really liked, though, was that every time I thought I had something figured out, another twist would kind of knock me off the path, and then I would have to get re-engaged into the story. So it helped me really stay motivated to continue reading, because I just kept getting humbled by the author by thinking that I knew what was going on and then finding out I was completely off track. Overall, I think that it is a really solid thriller, and one you'd probably want to get on your radar if you're looking for like creepy vibes. I wrapped up the month with a really good one. It's called The Gilded Heiress by Joanna Shupe. This one's a historical romance. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 on stars, 3 out of 5 on spice. This one follows Leo, who has been carrying the financial struggles of his entire family ever since they lost his father. In order to make that happen, he has had to do some morally gray things. When he's out on the streets, he ends up spotting a woman that strikes a resemblance to a family that his father used to work for. They were famous at the time because they had their daughter abducted, and he hatches a plan to bring that girl in front of the family and collect a reward that he knows still exists for reuniting the long-lost daughter to them. What he doesn't expect is that feelings he's never felt before start to develop with this girl, and he wonders if he's doing the right thing. I very rarely read the summaries of books before I head into it. It's usually just I pick up books because someone recommended it or the cover is pretty. Every so often I'll read the summary if I'm trying to kind of like narrow down between 3 different books. But I went into this book not knowing that it was an Anastasia retelling, and Anastasia is one of my favorite movies ever. But I immediately picked up on it as soon as I was in the book. It also has almost a Tangled feel at some points. So if you're into those like fairy tale style retellings, this one would definitely be the one for you. I do want to give a heads up though. If you're not a spice reader, the spice hits fast. I'm talking like chapter 2, the spice came in and it was aggressive spice. You could definitely skim past the spice or just skip that scene altogether, but it definitely does come in kind of like in an unexpected way. So it's not like you had fair warning that it was coming. So I did just want to mention that. But overall, I felt like the plot in the story was so well done. I absolutely loved the characters. I loved the background characters. I loved the setting. I normally read historical romances that are set like Regency time in the UK, but this one is actually set in Boston and New York in like the 1800s, late 1800s. So it was really fun to have a completely different time frame and a completely different location when reading a historical romance. I actually received this as an advance copy from the author and publisher. This one does not release until the end of August, so I would definitely get it on a pre-order, or if you keep a TBR for yourself to remind when books are coming out, especially if you're into the spicier vibes on historical romance. I think that it's a really really good one to pick up. Okay, so that wraps up everything that I read in the month of May. I did just want to discuss 2 other books that I had read earlier this year that just released in the month of May. Those were ones that I got advanced copies of that I just wanted to remind you that they released in case you want to build up your summer reading list, because both of these I think are perfect for summer romance vibes. The first one is It's a Love Story by Annabel Monaghan. This is a romance. I gave it a 5 out of 5 on Stars, 0.5 out of 5 on Spice. I already discussed this book earlier this year. I'll link the video down below. I have read all of Annabel Monaghan's books and she has never let me down. This one is super cute. If you want to just get all of her books on your radar for the summer, she always does like summer romances that just get you in the feels. She does a very honest and mature style relationship. It's like people that have a little miles on their sneakers, if you will. So if you're looking for that type of vibe in a romance, I would definitely recommend picking that one up. The other one I brought for show and tell as well, The Love Haters by Katherine Center. I could talk about Katherine Center for a half hour because I just love her so much. I have her signature here. Okay, I think I have 2 or 3 books now that I have signed from her. I actually got to meet her in person. I went to an event of hers. Look at the inside of this. Just look at it. Just look at it, you guys. And the green and pink together? What? I got to meet her and listen to her speak about her novels, and I will forever be a fan now. Look, it's like teal on the outside. I'm just obsessed. This book was so good. Another 5 out of 5 stars. She does not write Spice, so this was a 0 out of 5 when it came to Spice. She always has a way of writing that has like that nostalgic, like 90s rom-com vibe to it. This story was super cute. Definitely one I would recommend. And again, I would recommend anything by Katherine Center. This one and the rom-commers, I swear they're 2 of the best romantic comedies I've ever read. She has a very refreshing humor style and writing style, and just definitely would recommend. Hey there, hey. Totally forgot to go over my top 3. So my top 3 were The Amalfi Curse by Sarah Penner, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, and Scythe and Sparrow by Brynne Weaver this month. All right, so that officially wraps up all of the books that I wanted to talk about today. If you've recently read a book that you think I should get on my radar, as you can tell, I love romance. I also enjoy thrillers every so often, historical romance, historical fiction. I definitely need to pick up a historical fiction, which I think I might have one in my Libby queue. So hopefully I'll be talking about that next month. But if you have one to recommend that you think I should read, please leave it down below. If you enjoy more frequent updates, I also do have an Instagram for book content. It's at Kate Chapters. I'll put it up on the screen here and it's always linked down below. If this happens to be your first video with me, on this channel, I actually normally do grocery hauls and recipes. So if you're looking for some inspiration for your menu planning, please feel free to check out the rest of my channel, and hopefully you enjoyed the vibe enough to subscribe while you're here. I hope I delivered whatever you needed when you clicked on that thumbnail, and I hope you have a magical day. Bye.